Both types of sports with Schoode and Tor. Football discussion on the internet.
Doesn't seem fair to start with a opening that catchy. Other football podcasts probably. Man, is that a lot of face. I wasn't going to bring it up, Tor, because I'm proud of you for your weight loss and all the different personal accomplishments you've made. But what on earth went into the decision to unsheath your entire face on the witless audience?
Yeah, it was definitely a mistake through and through. The first time I've seen my chin in four and a half years. It's awful. It is way more neck than I went into the growing the initial patch up. The fat face, it's all bald. It all stinks. My face is awful. Forgot how small my features are. It made my nose look smaller. I don't have an upper lip. My eyes look tinier. It's a mistake. It's an overwhelmingly bad decision.
Well, and it's also what's wild about it is you look like you're 11 years old. So there's also like some sort of credibility issue, I think, too. It's like, why would I listen to a 9-year-old boy fresh off from the romper room out there pushing around his fellow 9-year-olds at Gymboree? Why would I listen to what he says about it? I don't know. And it's because you're doing a football beard. What is it?
Yeah, football beard. Doing another beard bet this season on a college football game that we haven't yet determined. But it's going to be either growing it out all the way through, or I'll be able to. Yeah, thanks. Yeah, who's this exactly?
Who is this punk kid?
The credibility standpoint will be an issue. I wouldn't listen to me. I wouldn't.
Oh boy. Well, you're like most of the audience then. They wouldn't listen to us either. Then he's got the money shot shirt on, which I thought we were going to throw away and retire, but it's just a wild bit. It is both types of sports. That is the radio's Gigantor. I am Chad Dukes. Thank you so much for joining us today. If you're watching live on YouTube or X or Facebook, appreciate you. Please hit the like button if there is one available for you. Always very much appreciated. And if you're listening on podcasts, whether it's iTunes or Spotify, consider going to youtube.com/Chad Dukes Show and subscribing. That way you can watch the show live if you prefer that. Our guest today will be, I think he's a 12-year vet, 11-year playing career, but I think he's was in the league for 12. Former first-round pick and current color commentary voice for the New York Jets. I think he just got that gig. Anthony Becht will be on the program today. He was on my radio show many times. And Tor, I'm almost as excited to talk with him about being the head coach of the St. Louis Battlehawks as I am anything Aaron Rodgers and the Jets this season, because for those people that don't know, if you didn't follow the XFL, or now what is it, the UFL, now that it merged with USFL.
Yep.
The Battlehawks are the Morgan Wallen of XFL football. I mean, they packed the house out in St. Louis. They were drawing numbers that no other team was. I wonder what that was like, because, you know, Florio and the gang that was trying to scuttle these leagues the second they start existing tour, they always point out, there's 7,000 people in the stands, 8,000. There's like 40,000 people watching the Battlehawks week in and week out.
We've discussed possible relocations for teams, and if we were going to add an expansion team to the NFL, where would it go? I would put one right back in St. Louis. It is it's a city that likes and appreciates football, and they were undeservedly giving some horrendous teams after the greatest show on turf came and went, and they pulled the plug there. And now we have two teams in LA for whatever reason all over again. St. Louis should have a team, and they do have a team in the Battlehawks, but I would like to see a dual UFL and NFL team there one day again.
Can you imagine how well this incarnation of the St. Louis Rams, like if they had, this was their guy, like if it was Sean McVay and Jared Goff and all these dudes, like, and it was this exciting a brand of football, what they would draw in St. Louis. I mean, I'm sure they sell out games in Los Angeles. I'm sure it makes more sense for the NFL to have teams in LA. It would mean so much more if that this generation of Rams football was happening there.
It would have been the greatest show on turf too when Cooper Kupp debuted. Puka Nacua would have taken over the city. They've had star power, and I know maybe moving to Los Angeles is why they got some stars like Jalen Ramsey, and they got some big names to go and sign there. I would want to play in front of the St. Louis fans if they're packing out the field, the stadium, and want to see some good football. always felt like a team that, or a fan base that got shortchanged by bad coaching or just bad quarterback play.
Yeah, so it's gonna be an interesting dude to have on. We can just talk football and all that. Also, it's just I just had my fantasy draft yesterday that I want to talk a little bit about, but somebody said, I think it was Monk, said something really stupid where they're like, well, you better get a tight end because there's never that many. And I was like, well, I don't know that you've read one thing about football this year if you believe that. Like, this is as deep as the tight end position I think I can ever remember, Tor, as far as athletic pass catching guys that the offense damn near runs through.
It's a surplus, and you'll be looking at the tight end rankings and forget about. I remembered Sam Laporta a couple weeks ago, and he was a stud rookie tight end, and that goes along with all the other good young tight ends. Trey McBride, you could find one. Every team just about has a tight end that you could
have to
fantasy.
All right, there's a gentleman that knows about playing tight end on the biggest stage. Of course, he knows a lot about the NFL, played there for 11, 12 years, and also a coach of the St. Louis Battlehawks that we were just giving much ballyhoo to, Anthony Becht, on the program. Anthony, thank you so much for joining us. We were talking about the culture that the Battlehawks built, and if you're looking at the crowds that were drawn in the XFL or the UFL, I root for all these leagues. I love guys getting opportunities. St. Louis, by far, it looked like Alabama, Auburn. Why do you think that your team was so embraced in that market, and what was it like playing in front of those fans?
No, hey, great to see you guys. Appreciate you having me on. Yeah, they've been phenomenal. I mean, it's just a blessing for me not only to be a head coach in this league, but to be given the team that brings the most fans to every single game. You talked about it. We average anywhere between 35, 38,000 a game, and they have been great. They've taken it on. Look, it's a city that was that had an NFL team taken away from them not too long ago. There's a lot of bitterness there with some of those fans. And then we've also had that fan base that comes because they love ball. They love our team. We've been successful the last 2 seasons. They were successful in the 2020 version, and just trying to feed off that every year. I think at the end of the day, if you bring a winner to a good product to the fans, they'll show up. But it's been a nice kind of back and forth. We've had good teams, and we've also, again, the level of the fan base has been awesome. And honestly, we've been I think every home game where we've averaged 35, 38,000 a game has been up against a Cardinals game the same day.
Wow.
So think about, the number of fans that go to the baseball games, because that obviously is the leader in the city. So again, we're hoping that we can mesh that up a little better, but again, it's spring ball, so we're going to have to go up against a few sports.
Tor and I were talking about if that Rams team that exists now with Sean McVay and all these amazing players, Matt Stafford and the like, if that was going on in St. Louis right now, I don't mean any disrespect to Phoenix or Miami or Nashville or every one of these transient markets and people tourism. A championship there doesn't mean as much as it does in Cleveland and in Buffalo and in Wisconsin, these football markets. And I wish that St. Louis, no disrespect to what you've accomplished, and people clearly are loving the brand of football that you guys are bringing to them, but if that team could be doing this in St. Louis, it would mean a lot more than just doing it in the same building as another Los Angeles franchise that, draws more fans of the opposing team than they do their own.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure. Again, I don't know how the NFL down the road will add more teams. It's always talked about. Again, they got the perfect scenario where you have 4 teams in every division. So again, how does that look if you add 1, 2, 3, 4? It'd be tough, right? So, but yeah, I think so. I think they would support it. I will say though, being there in the bad years in let's see, 5, 6, 7, 8, and 9 season. We averaged more fans at our games than we did at those NFL games. So it was a little different time when the Rams are kind of on the downswing during those years.
It's still cool. The guys that get a second chance that get to then go on and PJ Walker always comes to mind. I mean, now he's established himself as a guy that can play in the league. He makes rosters. He's leading guys down the field all the time, getting opportunities. How many of those stories have you personally encountered coaching that team? It's like, oh, this guy can play in the league. He just doesn't have the right eyes on him or needs the opportunity. I always love it when I see a UFL/XFL guy get picked up by the league.
Yeah, no, we had 3-4 guys that stuck through practice squad and rosters last season from our team. This year we had 8 more players that were in training camps, and we'll see how many stick. I mean, again, practice squad, I think, is the goal. It's extremely hard, guys. Listen, you got draft picks, you got guys that are signed under contract that are at camp that are already in these positions, and you're really fighting for a back end spot on the roster where if you come in, you just have to be electric. And then it's practice squad. So, how do you fit in there? So I think a lot of the guys are actively trying to get in, our higher end guys. Like we had the offensive player of the year in Hakeem Butler. He's already been released by the Bengals a few days ago. So, but is there a space for him in the league? Is he a practice squad guy? Yeah, I think so. I think they'll call him back, bring him in the practice squad. But I also understand, it's tricky. We utilize him differently than a team would just say, oh, okay, we got Hakeem Butler. Let's use him the same way as the Battlehawks. It's tough because they got guys, right? They got guys in certain spaces. So it's hard to get that pure look from them. But again, getting into the camp again is the goal. And these guys get another chance to prove themselves. And some guys will stick, few on rosters, and of course, practice squad across the league.
Anthony, I saw a picture of you chatting it up with a very good in shape Breece Hall this offseason. How high are your expectations for him this season? Do you think he could be a true top back in the league?
100%. He had to start the season slow last year because he was recovering from his ACL, and he probably could have taken more workload, but they were smart about it. He played in front of an offensive line that was, I think, 15 different starting offensive line looks from during the season last year for the Jets. If I look at him, he reminds me of a guy that can be like a LaDainian Tomlinson, where you're talking about 2,000 plus total scrimmage yards a year, right? Rushing 1,000 plus, and then receiving. He had 76 receptions last year, 5 or 6 yards short of 1,000, which I'm not quite sure how that even happens when they miscounted the yards last year in the last game. So. And that's starting a season off slow last year, coming off the injury. So I think he can make that 5 or 6 straight years doing that. And that would be obviously put him in a category that, we're talking about Priest Holmes, those years where those signature years for those backs where they actually, were doing really great things, catching and running. So, yeah, I think he's a confident player. He was the workhorse in college. He's proven he knows the game. He knows how to run the football effectively, and he's got really good speed. And they got a really good revamped offensive line that if it stays healthy, it's a top 5 line in the NFL.
We saw the comments by Aaron Rodgers about the camp this year and the quality of it, and the fact that he came out and said, look, this is one of the toughest camps that I've been in the past 7-8 years. Robert Saleh's out there making these guys work, and that's good. I'm curious, as a guy that's been through several training camps, what does that mean in 2024 where you've got, the pillows on your head and you're not allowed to wear pads and it's easy to poke fun at some of this stuff, but what does a tough training camp look like for fairly, there's young players on this team, but they've got lots of savvy vets as well. What does that look like, Anthony?
Yeah, and I think when he means tough, it's more rep related. Tough training camps for me were, a 2-a-day or, 8 straight days of pads. Those days are over, right? So yeah, that's tough training camp, and quarterbacks never got touched as it is. So what he is speaking to is the amp up of where maybe they were getting 20 of the reps that they practiced in during the training camp OTAs that were for the ones, amped up to 30. So over the time of training camp, you start adding up all those plays. You're talking about more and more that you're getting the ability to kind of work with the ones, work with those players. And everybody from the outside fan base, media-wise, they think about preseason games, and that's the only place or space you can get those reps together. Well, that's not the truth now, because they have every game that they played in the preseason, they worked with a team joint practice-wise. So you are getting those reps that you want to see. It's just not in a stadium per se. So they've amped that up. So I think it's just more rep count, rep number that you start feeling good about your starters and playing with each other and against other opponents that are playing at a high level. So that's where they kind of blend in. I'd say tough, tougher. Those are words that may are a little gray as far as what actually that means when I was playing early on. And hell, that changed, in my last year or two, that was starting to change with the 2010 CBA contract. So I got 2 years of that changeover where it got really light.
It feels like there's a new reason every year for the Jets as to why they didn't go all the way or fulfill their potential. Is there anything that you can key on this season that would derail them or not have them make the playoffs, and why?
Yeah, I think it would only come down to injury. Last year, and I can't speak for all the years because every year is different. Last year was clearly obvious, right? No Aaron Rodgers is a disaster for the organization. They had 4 different quarterbacks play throughout the year. That's something you just don't think will happen. Now, what that backup plan is maybe wasn't the best for them because of the scenario with Zach Wilson. And now they have Tyrod Taylor, who arguably can hold the fort down with the weapons and players that they have. A healthy Aaron Rodgers, even not at the peak of his play, is significant because the first 8, 9, 10 weeks of the season, guys, where the quarterback play was abysmal, the defense kept them in every single game.
Right.
Now you're talking about A-Rod coming in. It's a significant jump. I mean, it's going to happen. They are going to be a good team. There is no falsity or bias from me because I call the games or anything like that. They are going to be a better team. Aaron Rodgers will be just him in practice, the throws, everything he's doing. The guy has played 200 plus games, 20 years it's going to be different. And if he stays healthy and the offensive line stays healthy, this team's really good. They got a top defense. That is the key. So imagine this defense playing with a lead. We haven't seen that, guy. It's just not – they don't know what that is. And now they're going to have that. That changes everything. It changes how aggressive you can be as a good defense. They were basing up. They weren't being crazily aggressive. And they didn't get a ton of turnovers, to be quite honest with you. So this year, if they up the turnovers on the defensive side, which you would think if teams are down against them, there's going to be more risk, more passes. I think those things change. So the only downside is injury. And again, we're never going to talk about that because it only happens if it happens. If it doesn't, they're in really good shape.
The lower body for quarterbacks, it's become, it's always been important, footwork, be able to evade the rush, stuff like that, step up in the pocket. But now, the legs have become such a huge part of what a lot of these guys do, Anthony. And Aaron Rodgers is one of those guys. Like, he's not running around there like Josh Allen or Lamar Jackson, but his being able to evade things. And, he's 40, he's coming off big. This is a torn Achilles we're talking about. Like, these are monster injuries. And you didn't know the laser rocket arm is there. We don't know if the legs are there. He's out there against the Giants, and it looks like 34-year-old Aaron Rodgers. So that had to be a huge relief. If he's comfortable with his feet, he's comfortable with his legs and his knee and that injury, how much better does that make him for this team this year?
It's huge. I don't think they want to see him running and taking off, but that will happen in a game. He'll have to do that. I think that's going to take about 3 or 4 games for him to get fully comfortable on what, playing 60 to 70 snaps a game, right? And then feeling what that recovery looks like throughout the week, and then what it feels like the next week. So that will only get better, and it should, because obviously, yeah, you're right. It is a crucial injury at that age. It's a tough one to come back from, but he's put the work in. Again, it's just like any injury, just like Breece Hall's ACL, Mike Williams, the receivers coming off an ACL who they have now. Once they get out there and they start getting acclimated, those things will get better. But you're right. He's a pocket guy. He's got enough movement and quickness to extend that he needs to do. I think that's his biggest attribute as far as a movement guy like you talked about. And I think those things are going to be great. So, just getting out there that first game, he's going to have anxiety. He's going to have that adrenaline rush because it's been 2 years and you just want to know, but everything else is going to come back. I think the second series he's in that game, now he's golden. He's ready to go. So that's how I anticipate it. That's how I see it kind of playing out.
Tor brought this up earlier. We were talking about it. You're kind of that first generation of, we're going to have guys catching passes. We're not a 6th lineman anymore. This position is going to be important. And now we're at a stage where a lot of offenses, kind of a run through the tight end. You look at Travis Kelce or Mark Andrews or Kittle or any of these guys, but Laporta, McBride, Taysom Hill now going to tight end the full time, Jake Ferguson, Cole Kmet. The list goes on and on. It's more rare to find a team that doesn't heavily invest in the tight end, including taking these guys in the first round. How did that maturation process kind of take place? And is it simply the mismatches? I mean, too maneuverable for a linebacker, too big for the corners. Like guys like us just watch it. That seems kind of simple, but is it that simple? Like, how has the tight end position, the position you played, ascended to where it is now?
Yeah, I think what we don't see now is a complete tight end, right? I think a guy that can block, pass catch, pass protect. Now, there are guys that can do it pretty well, but they also are much better pass catchers. That's their forte. I think we did see this a long time ago. Gonzalez for over his time,
Sure.
Antonio Gates. The key to get an athletic tight end was to go find basketball players that could play at a high level. I think now what you're seeing is high-level receivers who are bigger body guys those are the guys that are transitioning more towards a lighter body tight end. So you're not going to see the 265, 270 guys anymore like a Gronk. You're going to see a 245 to 255 guy that can run, that can split out, that's adequate at blocking, that can get in front of a guy. But they are superior and they are matchup problems for inside linebackers and safeties. And that's where the bulk of the league is going now. They add the depth of the tight end position to maybe find a pure blocker or add the third tackle for that matter to come into the game. So there are a few guys that can do it all. But again, it's more of a 1-2. And I think there's guys more that are more not wanting to maybe be that kind of guy. And head coaches and coordinators that are like, you know what? We can get around it. We can deal with it. We love the fact that he's a matchup problem, and we'd rather have that instead.
Last season, we saw, obviously, Rodgers goes down in week 1, and the Jets fight like hell all season. What does Robert Saleh do so well to keep a locker room of professional football players invested in a team when momentum may be dragging and they may not have a lot of juice going into a week versus a favorable opponent or an unfavorable opponent? Like, how does he get this team so amped up every single Sunday?
Yeah, I think there's just pride level number one for guys. Being a head coach and when you're not winning and things are rough, I mean, you got to be able to motivate and give them greener pastures. And I think what that was for about 10 weeks, the first 10 weeks, the defense felt like they could keep the team in a game every single week. And as you get past those next 7 weeks, that's where you start, okay, now teams are starting to be at playoff level form. You don't have a supporting offense. It's getting harder. So again, even for the greatest head coaches, that is where the gray area becomes. How do you get these guys to continue to go out there and fight when we have 4 different quarterbacks? Who's starting at the position? I think his style and, player friendly, but yet still holding guys accountable and the way that they go about their business, be able to now have an offense. I think his style works great. And I think that carries on throughout the regular season, potentially into the playoffs. So guys respond to him. He gets it. He played the game, not at the highest level, but, in a small college framework. And he's been around the block. He's young. He's energetic. He brings a lot of passion. And he's real with the players. And I think that's what guys want.
All right. Talk to me about the basement of expectation. You heard Rodgers' comments where he said, I wanted to go out on my feet. Well, does that mean this season? Does that mean next season? Like, this is a team that is built and constructed, and you sign Mike Williams, you're signing these guys like they're ready to win now. The investments in the offensive line, but what does that mean? The playoffs are hard. You know that. Like, you get to the second round, you run up against the Ravens last year, who are just blowing out the best teams in the league until they stop running the football against the champs. There's nothing you can do. So it looks like, from the outside looking in, I don't know if they've supplanted Buffalo as the favorite to win this division. Miami's still going to score 40 points up until December. What's the basement level of expectation that you think would be acceptable to the organization and then, by proxy, the fan base?
Yeah, I mean, listen, the proven products are Buffalo right now. I mean, that we know what they are, what their potential can be, and where they can go, and where they've lacked. They haven't been able to get deep. I think the basement level expectation for me is, look, you got to get to the playoffs. That has to happen. After that, now it comes down to, okay, the expertise of Aaron, the messaging, all those different things, the health of the team, because you do have a lot of key players that are good, but they are young and they've never been in those situations where they've been in a playoff in the magnitude of a playoff game. So once you get there, I think that's where you can start saying, okay, how do we now take it to the next step? But not making the playoffs, I think this year would be catastrophic, because if everyone's healthy and the expectation levels are there, that's where, to me, it has to begin or start. Like, the playoffs have to happen. So, after they get into that, like, what would you be happy? I think, man, can they get to the AFC Championship game? The one thing that's different right now than last year with Aaron pre-injury is his urgency to get guys on the same page now. Last year, there was a lot of growth, understanding, getting to know his teammates, understanding that they can be good, they will be good, but then the injury came and that kind of changed everything. Well, now that he's got that, he even showed that during the season when he was hurt. He showed up to the games. He was there on the sidelines. He had the earpiece. All those things are huge. And now he understands, like, man, I put a lot of time and effort and mental fortitude into the recovery process of this injury. What you said is really a tough injury to come back from, let alone play multiple years after that. He knows his window is tight, or tighter than it maybe was last year, where he felt like he was going to kind of go on his own terms, get where he needs to get in maybe 2 years, and then see what happens. Well, now he knows, like, okay, here's year 2, coming back from an injury. We got to get going, and it's got to happen now. So that's where I see the urgency. You saw the conversations with him and Garrett Wilson on the sidelines. Those little things, like, all that stuff is good and great, and it just shows there's an urgency. We got to get it done right. We got to get guys on the same page, and we got to win now.
And I think that when you start with where you want to be to win now, looking good, feeling good, they got the new unis, and God bless them. I think they're an improvement from last year. But, Coach, this, in my opinion, this is the greatest Jets uniform of all time. It's not even close, and conjures up Curtis Martin, Vinny Testaverde, Coach Parcells, and you got to wear it. Do you agree with me? It's so crisp and clean and traditional, and it's everything I want, and the Jets seem to be moving further and further away from this look every season that comes around. Where do you stand on this thing? You got to wear it.
It doesn't matter. I mean, it's all about looks, sales, right? It's all about getting a new option out there. The players don't care. They're not going to play any better or any worse, dictated on what jersey. I like it. I kind of like those throwbacks. What is it? The 80s, 90s jersey that they have for the home games this year. I think it'll be cool. The helmets, that logo, the old school Jets wording with that sleek new script. I like it, man. I mean, it's good for the fans. It's good for players. It's good for everybody. But at the end of the day, guys, T-shirt and shorts, whatever it takes to get it done. Go out there, win a football game. That's the most important thing.
You're a football player. That is the correct response, by the way. It is Anthony_Becht on X. Definitely give him a follow. I know you're doing Jets games this year. Congratulations on that. You're fantastic behind the mic.
Thank you.
Battlehawks, though, that remains, correct? It's windy. How are you going to balance all the prep needing to call those games? And you got to ramp up for football season as soon as the NFL's done. Like, I imagine, and I think you got kids playing football too, and you're traveling all over the country for that. Where are you going to find all the hours?
Yeah, just booked 65 flights between Iowa State games and Jets games. Yeah, how about that? That's actually truly amazing.
Wow.
So sleep deprivation, I hope I don't dip into. I got to make sure I sleep. But look, we're seasonal league, right? I mean, right now the only thing that I'm doing is prepping for Jets games. I know the Jets, so that's easy, and just who that team is they're playing. I get to see my son play on Saturdays. The travel is the only real issue. But during the week, I'm watching waiver wires, guys. We're trying to fill holes, get better with guys that are getting cut here the next couple days, and then signing practice squad deals. Who's left? Who are the guys that we can recruit? Because that's what it is. I'm recruiting to bring players on to my team that I think I can help and fill voids and windows, fill holes that in their game to get them where they want to go. They want to make teams. And you got to sell that to them because, I'm going to wait, week 8, week 10, they're still hanging around. You don't want to just be a practice squad or a futures practice squad guy. You want to play ball. And I think after your second year, if you're on practice squad and you're not getting picked up, you should invest in yourself and play in our league. And that's who the players are right now we're trying to bring on our team. So it's, I have a GM that scours that, and I'm heavily involved in our makeup of our team as well. So I do dive into a lot of that. But again, it's really a waiting game and recruiting game to bring players to sign with the Battlehawks for next season.
All right, speaking, I believe you this. We got invited by the mayor of Knox County to go see Tennessee versus Alabama and to sit in his box. So we're graciously going to accept on that. Your boy is playing quarterback. When are the three of us going to an Iowa State game? I think that just makes all the sense in the world, Coach. You just point at the schedule, throw a dart. Tor and I will be there. We'll go with you up to the box. It'll be a fantastic afternoon. What do you say?
Yeah, well, I'm still working on the box. I was able to get the problem last year. I don't know if you peeked at any games, but the camera seemed to find me and my wife. We switched seats multiple times at the stadiums because
they love you.
They do pan to us, and that's okay. But sometimes I don't know what's coming out of my mouth or what my wife's doing at the time. A receiver drops a ball, you're like, So I don't get to show the emotion, so I got to hold that in. So that's not good if for my health, number one.
Sure.
I did find my way into some graciously some boosters were able to accommodate a few games where we were able to get access to those. The problem is I don't have open invitation to bring as many people as I want into
just two people, just the two of us. It's not as many. It's not that big a deal.
We can tailgate. We can find a good spot for you in the stadium and just hang with the general public. If you want to do that, we can make that happen for sure.
I have your cellular telephone number, so I'm going to hold you to that, sir. I can't wait.
Anytime.
Can't wait to hear you on the call this season. And of course, big UFL guy. Congrats. The Battlehawks are the biggest team in that league. It's got to feel good to coach him up. Thank you so much for the time, Anthony. Always appreciate catching up with you.
You got it, guys. Thank you.
The great Anthony Becht with us on both types of sports. Isn't he awesome?
Man,
he's a great guy, isn't he?
Top to bottom. What a stud.
You think, like, I know you do your college football podcast, but I'm going to have you booked up for the entire season, like in another couple of weeks. I just hope you got some frequent flyer miles because we're going to all these games. Well, his kid's the fucking quarterback. Shouldn't he be able to get us into a booth with him? Come on.
I would assume so.
I want you to be able to call a couple of series. That's what I want. I was like, here's my friend Tor. He's a young man, up and comer in this broadcasting business. He wants to call a few series.
Oh, we'll get some inside zone going real quick.
We'll pull the OC's like headphones away, and you get to like call a couple of plays. Maybe I think that's the type of pin pan we're talking about here. Oh boy. Oh, very cool. Mike from Don't Sleep. I don't like putting the free ones up. You know that. You can't super chat during this show, by the way. Don't be scared. Anthony Becht looks like he can still play. What a badass. Well, what's great is if you go back and Google search him when he's playing football, it's still the same face. You know what I mean? So it's just like he's got that. I don't know. He looks like a dude you'd want to hang out with the neighborhood, maybe around a chessboard, something like that. Spend a couple hours on a nice Sunday afternoon in New York with. But yeah, he's always been really good. And first round pick, he was kind of part of that era of the Jets too, where they were struggling at quarterback for so long. And, who knows if he would have been able to get a hold of some consistency at the position, just like a Kirk Cousins type role, because he was big and could block and was athletic, but he could also catch passes.
Yeah, they had some rough years at quarterback where it's
lean years, brother.
Really unfavorable when you're lining up outside and you genuinely don't know if you run the best route that you can and get the space. You still don't know if it's going to hit you right in the hands.
Where are you at on these unis? They're before your time, I think. They're the best, right?
They clear any other Jets uniform by a mile.
Yeah, I completely.
The shoulder piping, the stripes, the white helmet is spectacular. I like the oval with the simple Jets in the middle. I like that it's featured kind of to the side on the jersey. Also, it's not written right above the numbers. It's unique in how simple it is and also how clean it is. I love that uniform.
But you know what? You could tell, and this is a thing that's kind of waning a little bit, that he's a real football player, because what he said is the way it should be. Like, I don't care what we're wearing. I want to go out there and win football games and beat the other team down. And now it's all about, as you kids put it, the swag. If they've got that Riz out there on the field, Gigantor. That's right. I like making you uncomfortable with my updated vernacular. I like it when those guys are like, I don't give a shit what I'm wearing. Let's go out there and win the football game. I didn't mean you, Mike. Jesus. Mike from Don't Sleep, $50 super chat. Wasn't sure if we could super chat with a little kid here. Oh, Tor.
Thanks,
Mike. Tor, your baby face is getting that business. My God.
The new Jets helmets, they just look like Christmas ornaments to me. It doesn't look like a football helmet. The overly shiny, overly green. Maybe it'll look good on TV, but it just looks like Christmas time to me. And that's not really the aesthetic that I would go with for a professional football team's uniforms.
Here's something that I didn't see coming, Tor, is that yesterday I was watching who the Commanders play, the Patriots, right?
Yeah.
Out there and actually, I think it was battle of the backups. I didn't watch much of the game. This uniform was getting rave reviews. If you're listening on Apple, iTunes, or Spotify, it's the black Redskins uniforms that makes them look like either the Steelers at some points or the Iowa Hawkeyes at others. I thought they were universally despised, but I went poking around on Commanders X last night.
Oh.
People were giving them rave reviews. I think these things are hideous, and you can't even tell what team is playing out there.
I loathe the W right in the middle of the helmets. I don't mind that they're the thin number on the side of the helmet. That's probably the best thing about the uniform, but there's so much going on with no direction.
I agree.
It's still kind of the military thematic jersey with the side emblems and insignias. It doesn't scream football to me. It screams we put a lot of things that other teams did well on their jerseys together on one jersey and decided to make it all black uniform smorgasbord. And if there's enough pieces, someone's gonna like one piece on the uniform, I guess.
I tell you what's funny about it is they have the Washington D.C. District of Columbia flag on the sleeve, and they don't play in D.C. and they don't practice in D.C. and it's just somewhat ironic. I thought we all agreed these uniforms blew a couple of seasons ago when they announced them, but people were digging them last night. Maybe it's Jaden Daniels is cool, and they had pictures of him warming up with it. By the way, I got to give you credit. I'd heard the he's lean talk.
Mm-hmm.
I'm obsessed now. And in that black uniform, he looked like he weighed $130, dude. I mean, he might be the skinniest quarterback I've ever seen.
It's like watching Kevin Durant if he was going to be put into a NFL uniform. Now, in the same vein, Kevin Durant, uber talented, can make a lot of big plays and became the face of his sport, even though he couldn't bench press 135 pounds coming out of college. But it's a different sport. It's football. There's much different types of collisions and contact. And then the uniforms, it should be burgundy top, gold pants, or burgundy top, white pants, or white top, burgundy pants, gold pants. The all black, no. The new Arizona, you picked it perfectly. The Arizona State, no. Those stink. Yeah, Look
how thin he looked. We're watching a video now of him just throwing a football. I mean, he's quick. He's very tall. I mean, when he's lining up behind center, he can see over everybody, which is great. There's plenty of quarterbacks in this league. Like Baker Mayfield always looks like he's 5'7" to me when he's out on the field. He's not that, but I think you nailed it with the Kevin Durant comparison. I mean, if Kevin Durant was out there, he's a Commanders fan. I think that's what he looked like. So hopefully, who the hell knows, man? John Bones Jones has got the wickedest leg kicks in the world, and there's no calf muscle at all. It goes straight from knee down to ankle, and he can kick through a goddamn petrified tree.
Yeah, I mean, I look like a melting candle in my jersey, so I don't really have much room to I'm not criticizing, but it's something that fans are going to notice, and they will continue to notice it, especially if he ever gets up a little dinged up and banged around.
Do you know what Colin Quinn one time called Jim Norton? You look like a sandcastle on the beach that has only partially been destroyed by the waves. And I was like, oh, that's what Tor's describing right there. Thank you so much, Mike, from Don't Sleep. Don'tSleepEnergy.com is the website. Duke's promo code. Get yourself a discount today. Jason from Connecticut. I assume that's Connecticut, right? Tor, Connecticut?
Yes.
$10 super chat. The Jets will find a way to crush your dreams in any motif. I mean, look, winning Super Bowls is hard. When Parcells was there, and even when I always forget, it was Rob Ryan or Rex Ryan. Rex Ryan was the head coach. At least they were playing the type of football you want, and they were competitive. And I think if I'm a Jets fan, that's more important to me. Like, they were always the blue collar underdog team where the Giants always came across as like the glitz and glamour. If I was going to be a fan of a New York team, it would be the Jets. But I understand you believing that, Jason. I don't know how you can't be. If you watched that, we talked about it last week. We didn't see Aaron Rodgers at all in the preseason, but we saw him in that practice just doing whatever he wanted to the Giants secondary and dropping fucking moonshots into the end zone door. You got, and his legs look good. Like we said, he actually looked like he could move around in the pocket. So,
well, there was also, he better look good in the pocket. We saw the stuff last year when he was on the sidelines throwing 3 weeks removed from the big injury. He's on the sideline throwing, and he did that all season where he was down on the field. I would hope he looked fresh after those hysterics last season.
Fresh pressed like $1 million. Thank you, Jason CT, for the $10 super chat. Very much appreciated. All right, before we move on, look, it's not really football analysis to talk about uniforms and logos and names and shit, but I did want to bring this up. If I haven't listened to the fans since I was terminated. I hope the people that I'm still friends with there understand why, and they're doing much better than I am, so it's no big deal. But if I were on the fan today, I know what I would be discussing, and it would be the owner of the Commanders coming out and addressing a bunch of different things, including relocating the stadium and all this. But Grant Paulson, who's I've always been really cool with, and he's always been very supportive of me, and of course everyone knows him, he's a superstar in Washington, D.C. sports, actually asked Josh Harris about something that really has gained a lot of steam, at least on social media, and that is this return from the Commanders, not just to a different name tour, but to Washington Redskins. And I don't know if you get all the same clickbaity shit that I get, where it's this tribe has said that this is a real person on the side of the Redskins helmet, and it's honoring him, and it's insulting that you change it and all this shit. And like,
oh yeah, seeing all sides of both arguments.
Right. I just know that I never thought of it. Once it's changed, like once you can't smoke in the restaurant, nobody ever gives it back. Right. It only continues to go further down that aisle. And that's why people, even if you don't drink a lot of soda, I think a lot of people were like, hey, why are you eliminating 44-ounce sodas? Because you ain't ever going to get them back if that takes place. So Grant was there at this press conference where the fucking owner of the Commanders is actually sitting there taking questions, which is very refreshing, I imagine, if you're a Washington fan. And I pulled the video of it, and I thought we could at least talk about it on the show, because I spent endless hours of my career talking about the Washington Redskins name, and it's still a very big issue if you are listening here locally.
It does matter. I just think that, and certainly, like we've been very clear, we can't, for obvious reasons, the old name can't come back.
I think that's ballsy of him, and I think that's also the right move. Like, be clear and be upfront. The old name is not coming back. Would Dan Snyder ever come out and say anything that definitively? Would Dan Snyder ever come out and say anything?
No,
to the fan base like that.
And the coaches and executives last year were constantly having there was always a little lure in the pond that was just sitting there, and every now and again a Commanders Redskins Washington football team fan would just bite at it and bite at it, and then why are we still biting at it? Because the lure is in the pond. That's why. Taking the lure out of the pond removes the possibility of it.
And kudos to Grant for asking this question, because I don't know that anyone else would have. And an enormous amount of the fan base, this is, priority number one, especially if they think the future looks bright.
It does matter. I just think that, and certainly, like we've been very clear, we can't, for obvious reasons, the old name can't come back. But right now, we're focused on things that unify the team around our football team, right? And unify the city around our football team. And so the first objective is we guys are winning football games.
By the way, you and I have always said this. Everyone that has ever watched 2 football games says this. You could call yourself whatever the fuck you want. Call yourself the muckrakers. Call yourself the douchebags. Call yourself the urinary tract infections.
Oh yeah.
If you're 12-4 and consistently beating your division rivals, it doesn't matter what your colors are or your logo is. It's going to be fine, Tor.
Of course, the winning truly cures all. It does. You could be called a boring winner. You could be called a flashy winner. You could be called a undeserving winner. But if you're winning, the fans in that city don't care, and they're going to be excited, and they're going to have pride. It's all the COVID bubble championships. Everyone can hate on them. Every fan of those teams that won a championship during those seasons, even fans couldn't be there, hold strong and hold it up, because they did win. It's something to really, I guess, take pride in, is being able to have a winning football team.
Yeah, and then a lot of these other issues he's talking about. But I also think, look, it's kind of a catchphrase to say we want to unify, but you would say this is probably one of the most fractured fan bases over the past 25 years of any sports team. So a lot of that healing is now something that he needs to deal with, and the name is a big component of that.
And we need everyone supporting the team and not things that might drive people apart. Secondly,
thing is that changing the name, whether you like it or not, drives people apart, because it's all of the good memories that you have. None of them are the Washington Commanders. They're all the Washington Redskins. And to just tell people that everything you've ever associated with the name Redskins is this team having success and watching games with your dad, and that's racist and bad and terrible, and it must go, because that is a very bold message, even if you think it's the right one. So I think probably that could have been acknowledged as well. But he's in a tough spot. He bought a team that was already going through this quagmire.
Right.
And they picked the wrong name for it. It's not his fault either. They picked the worst name and the worst logo, and it would be bad business to immediately come in and change it for a third time, in 3 years. So I get that part of it.
Obviously, we're trying to find a new home. And again, unifying the city around that is important. And
I thought they announced they were going to be in Virginia. I thought Jason Wright, that's what he was going to do, is he was going to be the one in charge of finding a new home. Why are they having so much trouble finding a new home?
It's been
interesting.
Yeah.
I would be for, honestly, knocking down the old building and putting it there. Like, I know they don't want to do that. I know there's a lot of reasons why they shouldn't. But the more and more I'm seeing these mock-ups, Tor, of what was the one we played last week? I think it was the Browns.
Yeah.
But like Los Angeles has already done this. I think Las Vegas has as well, and all the new stadiums. Nashville's it's not just a stadium. They're building fucking gigantic mini cities surrounding these stadiums. So I think we need to our paradigm needs to shift of what we think these buildings are going to look like eventually.
Yeah, they're not building a spaceship. They're building the Enterprise now, a fully functional system where people can come and go. And just for football, it is the downtown. Everyone preaches the downtown area where you can go, and there's a sports book now. Have fun. Yeah, I'll be on my couch, but just make it as accessible as possible for you to park and walk to the stadium with the least amount of traffic.
Where's most of their fan base? I mean, you just end the question there. Is like, we need to go where most of our fan base is. And unfortunately, I think that's Northern Virginia. And let me be very clear. I don't want that fucking stadium out here. Like, I don't want to have to avoid an entire, 30 miles of the state every Sunday because you're not getting anywhere. Can you imagine if they put that at the end of 28 or at the end of 7 or some of these roads that are already completely jacked up? I mean, I don't want that.
It'd be a disaster.
But if I'm them, that's what I'm looking to do.
And the name is one of those things that have a lot of opinions. But I mean, I can't say I've certainly not forgotten. I mean, like I said, I grew up here. Okay, so I understand it. And we're going to start to do things that bring us back to our heritage, honoring our past. The gold, solid gold pants. Those are easy things.
They love those gold pants, don't they?
Oh yeah.
And also, this is a nice way of saying these are key jangles, right? This is a nice way of, this is The Flash, the movie The Flash. It's like, well, this movie sucks. Well, wait a minute, though. You get to see Michael Keaton as Batman. Oh, look over here. It's Christopher Reeve as Superman. It's like, right, but the movie sucks. So, I mean, Dan Snyder did this all the time. He brought back Joe Gibbs, brought back the key jangles are fine, but that's a different issue.
Things to do. So we are doing research and we're thinking about it, but like right now we're prioritizing the things that we've talked about, and that's kind of the rationale for it.
I think, kudos to him for getting up in front of people and actually addressing this, because it is a monstrous issue with the fans, and kudos to Grant for asking it. So by and large, I think that's positive, or at least the fans know where they are. Like, we can follow this Twitter account as much as we want. It's a fun Twitter account to follow, but it ain't going to fucking happen. So maybe we can focus our energy into ways where we can continue to honor the legacy, not treat it like a pariah. And I saw some people posting pictures of like the inside and some of the new artwork, and it's all the old helmet, it's all the old jerseys. It's it's not like it's verboten to say that stuff inside of that building.
I just like that he gave a very good answer thoroughly. He said, we're not doing this. This is what our focus is on. This is why we need to focus on it. And we're trying to keep all of the fans together, pulling the rope in the right direction. I think it was the only answer he could have given that would have appeased me who would look at every word under a microscope to see if there is a chance, or to see if he could be fibbing. Didn't seem like that. It seemed, I'm like, I'm finally the adult in the room, and I am trying to pick up the pieces. You have to stay patient with me while I do this, because we need to remember the context of why I am now the adult in the room, because we couldn't do it beforehand. So please be patient with me. This is my focus, and I hope you can respect that, which is all I would want to hear an owner say.
You had a Nick Chubb update for us as well, did you not?
I did, and additionally, we
by the way, where do you draft Jerome Ford in a fantasy football league? I think he's got top 10 running back. Am I crazy? He's got top 10 running back potential this year.
I would say I'd put him in top 15 running back potential, which is he's worth having on your fantasy team if you can find him. Someone is going to, if you see someone reach for him in your league, that's fine. I will let him go. But if he's sitting in the sixth round, I'll pick him up. 6th, 7th round in that area. That's an easy addition.
813 yards, 4 touchdowns. Also had 44 catches for 319 yards and 3 scores after that horrific Nick Chubb injury, which, you know, there were a lot of guys that know more than us saying we're not going to see this guy again. Like, you don't get up from breaking your leg like this and play a position like running back. It looks like that's not true, but it does sound like maybe he needs a little bit more time.
Yeah, Browns general manager Andrew Berry said that Nick Chubb still had a little ways to go before being fully cleared. He's going to start the season on the physically unable to perform list, so he will not play the first 4 weeks. I'd rather know this now before my fantasy draft, which is nice. I'm a huge Nick Chubb fan. I like how he runs the ball. I love his demeanor. I love that he has an old school mentality with new school speed. There's a lot of things about Nick Chubb that I love. That injury last year was horrific. If it's a take your time situation to see Nick Chubb running the ball in November and December, I'm for it. Go ahead, take the 4 weeks. I'm starting to realize that the first 4 weeks of the season, while numerically they matter in wins and losses, it's not when the team is fully fleshed out. You know, October, November, December, the schedule of in-season peaks has shifted back a month. Due to one less regular season or preseason game, due to restrictions on practices in the preseason and training camp. It's not going to be fleshed out in those first 4 weeks anyways, so take your time.
How about any 4 weeks? I mean, how about we Joe Burrow? We've endlessly talked about what a slow start he is, and of course the swoon the Chiefs had at the end of the season. What happened at the end of last year? The Buccaneers turned it the fuck on and became one of the most dangerous teams in the NFC, sleeper teams. The Ravens, you know, went from being, we know they're going to be a playoff team, to, oh my God, they're the best team in the NFL. Like, I would much rather flesh my team out, get right, get guys healthy, whatever it needs to be over the first 4 weeks, maybe suffer through a one. You know, if teams started 1-3, you remember all those stats they'd throw up, Tor. You're never going to make the playoffs. This is all bullshit. And like, with the preseason the way it is and it's dumbed down as it is, I completely agree with you. So I got no problem with this. And if the Browns are going to be a Super Bowl contender this year, because if Deshaun Watson is a mediocre quarterback, I tell everybody they're a Super Bowl contender this year, and you're getting a fresh Nick Chubb back, maybe it's 75% of what he was before that injury. I like that. I like that in the back half of the season. And I'm with you. I know your affinity for running backs. You know mine. You cannot watch that guy play running back and not be a fan of his. If you knew nothing about the squat videos and all the crazy online shit, you just got to like the way he runs the football.
Every time he touches the ball, he has just a home run ability with a frame that looks like he's just an in between the tackles guy. But then he'll bounce it outside, make a crazy cut, and go for 60 and a touchdown, and just shock a defense. And that's something I can't put a price on, is being able to truly take the defense out of the game 5 plays a game, where there's nothing you can do to stop me.
All right, so it is official now, Tor. The Chiefs have reached a deal with JuJu Smith-Schuster. If you think this is some sort of a time loop, it is not. He was the leading receiver on the Chiefs 2022 Super Bowl championship team. 78 passes, 933 yards for them. Signed this deal with the New England Patriots, 3-year deal, $25 million, and then was booted. Only got the one season in, 29 passes, 260 yards, 1 touchdown in 11 games. He was released by the Patriots earlier this month. He's 27. And the reason why I bring this up is twofold. One is I would believe that this means that Kadarius Toney, who was told by Andy Reid was playing for his spot on the roster, I think they're probably going to be moving on to greener pastures. Sky Moore is another guy that I think is going to struggle to find a role with this team. But Tor, the reason why I wanted to bring this up is you and I spoke to Ben Volin, I think 3 weeks ago on this show from the Boston Globe. He's as plugged in as anybody is in this league. And I asked him specifically about JuJu Smith-Schuster and about what happened, because all these expectations happened with him going to the Chiefs. That didn't necessarily pay the dividends you thought. He ends up in New England. It's a disaster. I mean, this was a guy that was a baby face going through all the Antonio Brown drama. And I thought I'd pull this just for some context on the signing, and kind of makes me scratch my head a little bit as to why the Chiefs would do this.
JuJu Smith-Schuster was like the oldest 27-year-old in the NFL. He into the league at, I think he was 20. And what happened was, I want to say his last year in Pittsburgh, he suffered a knee injury, and I think it's just lingered. It's, whether it's like bone on bone, or it's something that, reports came out when he spent the year in Kansas City. He made it through the season, but it took a ton of work each week, and he barely practiced, and he was constantly in the trainer's room. So his knee has been an issue for the last several years since he injured it in Pittsburgh. And then last year, the Patriots and free agency, things just went sideways with them. They, were pinching pennies with Jacoby Myers. It should have been a no-brainer to bring him back. Instead, they upset Myers, who leaves for the Raiders for just $1 million more, nothing crazy. And then I think the Patriots panicked and just turned to JuJu Smith-Schuster and gave him a similar contract with a little bit less guaranteed.
The Patriots are a hot mess, are they not? I mean,
disaster.
They're a disaster. By the way, look at that beautiful facial hair on the guy in the upper right-hand quadrant of this video. God, he looks so regal and dignified, and
he looks like he's got his shit together. Yeah, he doesn't look.
Well, the point is the stuff he's talking about with JuJu Smith-Schuster's knee didn't go away, Tor. It's not like it doesn't exist any longer. Maybe the Chiefs just know how to handle it, and so they're not as concerned as the Patriots were.
Maybe he fits well with the locker room for the Chiefs, and they know exactly how they want to build their team chemistry, and having JuJu Smith-Schuster on the team being a positive force could help that serviceably on the field. I don't think he adds very much.
Well, Hollywood Brown's ding too. Maybe it's just to help, maybe he doesn't have a role with this team once that guy comes back.
Yeah, it's it feels like just a move. It doesn't make much of an impact for how I think the Chiefs offense will perform.
This is a fucking move, and this makes an impact. Actually, something breaking while you and I are doing the show, Tor. Write it down as the first time it's ever happened that I can recall.
I guess it's the good Anthony Becht luck. He brought us with an appearance.
I think it's your load shirt. I think it's the fact that you got the baby face combined with the load shirt brought on this. As we are recording this, if you're listening later, CeeDee Lamb has agreed to a $136 million deal, a 4-year deal, the second highest paid non-quarterback in NFL history, being reported by Adam Schefter. If I'm him, I love the way this turned out, Tor, because I got a giant bag of money. I didn't have to go out there and dick in the dirt my way through training camp with these losers. I mean, why the fuck didn't you just pay the second you saw his production last season in regards to the rest of your offensive skill position players? Break out the bag and say, take as much money as you want. Just turn the lights off and lock the door after you're done.
For every guy that Dallas has paid and it hasn't worked out, you would have thought that Kevontae Turpin, okay, let's see if we could make him work. Kenny Galladay, out, done. He's not in the league anymore. You paid him a big bunch of money. And then CeeDee Lamb, highest producer at wide receiver and biggest superstar they've had at the wideout position since Terrell Owens. And you're going through a off-season long teeth-pulling negotiation. What is that? Who's that for? That's what I want to know. Who specifically is that act and theater for? Because that's what it feels like. Yeah. Who does it benefit? Is it, okay, is it Jerry Jones and the Cowboys front office reminding them that, we're still ownership and we still have the control? I'm not sure. It felt like a weak move that we all knew was going to happen. We knew they were going to have to re-sign CeeDee Lamb. Too many teams have been burned recently, and by letting their number one receiver walk and get paid at another team and thrive there. It was a smart move. I just wish that they wouldn't treat us all like dunces and play it out like this.
All right, so a couple of details here. His deal did include a $38 million signing bonus, which is the largest ever given to a wide receiver, but he's the second highest paid receiver in the NFL. Justin Jefferson still topping the market. After him, it goes Lamb, and then A.J. Brown, Amon-Ra St. Brown, and then Tyreek Hill. So, wow, Drew Pearson to Michael Irving to Dez Bryant to CeeDee Lamb. They can find stud wide receivers for that organization. They can't win Super Bowls with them since Irving, but my God. Look, what are you going to say? They paid him. I don't think, like you were saying, Tor, the way the 49ers do business, it's like, well, they're in the NFC Championship game every year. If they want to fuck around with Trent Williams and Brandon Ayuk and all these guys, they kind of earn that right. Cowboys have not earned the right to make this as difficult as it is, and then just have their owner be the GM and say a bunch of weird shit in the media that causes these players to, what the hell is going on? Like, you give them the bag, they're going to overlook all that, but just what you're causing yourself a bunch of problems that you don't need to cause yourself.
It doesn't feel like there's a common sense guy in the room. It feels like a bunch of robots that go over the numbers and a bunch of egos that don't care about the numbers, but there's not anybody that could split it right down the middle and be what I would assume would be a general manager's duty and say, okay, I've seen both sides of this. This is the decision we should make through common sense. Dallas doesn't have one of those guys. Good teams in the NFL, it seems like they do. Oh, you re-signed a good offensive lineman. Good. That's a good common sense move. Okay, you cut a kicker that missed a bunch of kicks, is not reliable, is not focused. Fine, common sense move. Find the right moves, do them as quickly as possible so you can strictly focus on football and film and practice and health. All this other nonsense just clogs up the drain.
Let's see. In the chat here, Jake says, Dukes, have you seen the Modelo's Raiders 24-ounce can? Are you talking the one from a couple of years ago, or is there a new one? Because I know they did, I don't know if you saw it, Tor, but they did, oh, here it is. They did a can for the year they moved to Las Vegas. And as you know, I prefer it in the can. Let me see if I can pull it up here. I think that all of you know what I was drinking out of this weekend? I was drinking out of Chicago Cubs Budweiser cans.
Oh,
and
yeah.
That was fantastic. Yeah, that looks good. Are you just asking if we've seen it? Because it's this 2020 season on the bottom there.
That's a cool can.
Fine looking can.
I was drinking 32-ounce Miller High Life cans, which I could buy for $2.25.
Oh, I ain't mad at you for
which
that.
I went my Friday. I got 12 wings, side of fries, two High Life tall boys. And I said, run it right back on Saturday. Same exact order.
I'm not shitting on you. I want you to make sure. I want to be very clear that 12 wings and fries sounds good on paper. I've never eaten fries with wings. Is that a thing? Wings have always kind of been their own animal whenever I consume them, especially with, the amount of trash that's left over afterwards. I've never enjoyed them with French fries.
I luckily found a spot that has a delicious hot wing sauce, and it's just the perfect level. So they'll put the fries in the bottom of the styrofoam, so some of them will soak up that hot sauce in them. So I have a nice hot fry as a pairing with the wing. But I agree that traditionally the wing is it's a standalone food. It's
a standalone fruit.
You can roll with
blueberry.
You can roll with the hot wings or lemon pepper, garlic parm, whatever you want, and that could be the whole meal. And you give me a celery stick and a couple carrot sticks, that's fine. But I understand the wing being the true primary.
This isn't necessarily the venue for this, but as long as we're talking interesting beers that we've had recently, I did want to show you this because I don't know if you have a file on it, being as youthful as you are, but I assume you are aware of those Bud Select 55 beers they used to have that were 55 calories. They came in a silver can. Were you aware of that?
Oh, I don't believe so.
Okay, well, then you're going to be even less aware of this. So Bud Select 55 was a light beer that had only 55 calories in it. I don't know if it's still around. It was one of the most disgusting beers I've ever had in my life. It tasted like the inside of a fucking
I've
battery.
seen this. Yeah, I've seen this. Yeah. This is a trash beer, yeah.
Awful beer. Now, what came before that, Tor, was Budweiser made a light beer that wasn't Bud Light. It was called just Bud Select, okay?
Okay.
You following me? This was before that awful Bud Select 55 beer that you're looking at right there. And I used to love Bud Select. Bud Select was my go-to beer. Like whenever we go to the Outer Banks, I would buy cases and cases of this shit. And it was kind of just known that was my beer. They discontinued it. It went away. They didn't make it anymore. And this Bud Select 55 came out, and I was like, oh shit, they've replaced it with a lesser beer. It's like Pepsi One. Pepsi One got replaced by Pepsi Max, which was like an energy drink Pepsi with more caffeine in it. Now it's whatever the fuck that it is, but they took away my favorite thing. I was in Indianapolis this weekend, and I saw this, and this is Bud Select that I remember. This is the Bud Select that I loved. It was a black can. It had a red crown at the time as the logo. They had this fucking beer in the liquor store 2 feet down the street from my Airbnb. So me and my brother bought a 12-pack. We both love this beer. We tried it. We're like, maybe they've reintroduced it. Like maybe it's a new formula. No, it's the same fucking beer.
Oh my God.
Here's what I figured out, Tor, is that Budweiser said, fuck these bougie areas. They don't know what they're doing. They stopped sending Bud Select to cosmopolitan areas like Washington, D.C. The Midwest has had it this whole time. And no one told me. Okay, listeners in the Midwest, you motherfuckers, you've known about this the whole time. Nobody sent me a case of Bud Select.
Oh my God. You've had listeners in Wichita. You've had listeners all over the place.
All over the place, Car. And Bud Select has been there the whole time, and not one of them. Corey Reed's fucking kind of bivouacs in Ohio every goddamn other weekend. He won't bring me a 12-pack of Bud Select.
That's incredible. I don't know. I would feel like they discontinued the natural light seltzer. They had a cherry limeade one that was just.
I think I liked about 6 ounces of that.
It was 6%, and I drank probably 500 of them during COVID, and then they stopped selling because I think they give diabetes and their sugar is going crazy. But if it became a situation where I drove to Kentucky and I saw them a 30-pack, I would load the car up and drive it. It wouldn't matter. I would get a U-Haul and fill it up with
you and I were seltzers. Heavy in that Natty Light seltzer game for the very beginnings of the Chad Duke show. I do remember that.
They were killing it and leaving the nutritional value off the can.
Listen to me, you motherfuckers. If any of you see that Bud Select black labeled shit, you fucking get that for me. And I'm not talking about Budweiser Black. That's something completely different. That was them trying to do some snooty ostentatious. What's the word? Am I making up words?
Last one, yeah.
I felt so betrayed finding that beer this weekend, Tor. So betrayed.
Did you enjoy them?
Oh my God, it just felt like coming home. It felt like sliding into a warm bath. And I've never seen so much Caitlin Clark on television, by the way. Indiana's not fucking around. They love Caitlin Clark. They're not like all the other players and coaches.
Indiana's obsession. Yeah, Indiana's obsession with basketball is it's a weird phenomena in American sports. It's like the Minnesota hockey and high school hockey situation where it's just these people care about it more. This certain areas care about rugby and lacrosse up and down the East Coast, but Indiana and basketball, you cannot separate the two.
Also, I don't like the For the Shoe. I don't like that slug line for the Colts. Although in the airport, big Dwight Freeney and big Dallas Clark framed jerseys as you walk in, pop big for that.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. They had drag racers like all over the airport. Indianapolis is. I don't know if they have any of their colleges that actually participate in football tour. You'd know better than I. If you guys ever go on the road for your other show, any of those places would be a good place to go. I saw more Butler. People fucking love Butler up there. They're all in. They have their own bars. Am I getting that wrong? Is Butler
yeah, I think so.
In Indiana.
Yeah. Let me make
I went to a bar called the Bulldog, and it was a Butler bar, and I enjoyed myself thoroughly. I loved it. I might move to the Midwest. Everybody was nice. Nobody was mean. Everyone's 7 feet tall because they all play basketball. So I'm just looking up at everybody.
Oh, yeah. Butler is in Indianapolis.
Thank you. Look at me. They call me College Hoops Shoed sometimes as I'm walking around the Kroger. I'll be going down the produce aisle at Kroger, and they're like, holy shit, is that Seth Davis? No, that's College Hoops Shoed. All right. Wow, we got to break some news, Tor. I'm steamed. Oh, thank you to Anthony Becht. Hey, send Anthony Becht a nice tweet, please. I think it's Anthony_Becht on X.
Yeah. Yep, that's it.
Yeah, send him a nice tweet. Follow us on Twitter, both types of sports. What are you gonna do, Tor, when we get as many fucking followers as Hack City? Are you gonna retire? I hope you retire.
Maybe. I don't know what I'm doing.
I don't think you got to worry about it. We haven't had it any in the last couple of weeks. Leave a 5-star review on iTunes and Spotify or whatever. Tor, I think I'm gonna have to get back with you. I'm on the road Thursday, so I'm gonna see if Sal's could you potentially do a Sal's episode on Wednesday?
I believe so.
All right, I'm gonna reach out to him. Okay.
Cool.
John Salisbury joining us all season long. Make sure you're subscribed and locked and loaded. He'll be joining me and Tor on Thursdays, and he's the best in the business. We only need to prep 2 questions. You good, big man?
Yeah, all good on my end.
All right, well then go long.
Hey, what do you got?
Both types of sports.
Yeah, what's it do? Go long. Real long.